Welcome to today's webinar, Adapting Activities for Older Adults with Down Syndrome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Laura Crone, and I'm the Project Manager for Education and Research at the Advocate Medical Group Adult Down Syndrome Center in Park Ridge, which is a suburb of Chicago in Illinois. We are a healthcare clinic for adolescents and adults with Down syndrome ages 12 and older. Since opening in 1992, our healthcare providers have seen over 6,000 individuals with Down syndrome. In addition to providing patient care, we offer a variety of research and education opportunities, such as this webinar, and our online resource library. Our online library contains over 500 articles, visuals, videos, and other resources related to health and well-being of individuals with Down syndrome. You can access it free of charge at the link on the slide or using the QR code. Next slide, please. Before I introduce Dr. Frank, I have a few reminders. This webinar is being recorded. The link to the recording and the slides from the webinar will be emailed to all registrants within 1 week. There will be a Q&A at the end of the presentation. Please feel welcome to submit questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. We will address as many of the questions at the end of the presentation as we can. Next slide. I am excited to introduce our presenter today, who is Dr. Katie Frank. She has worked as an occupational therapist at the Adult Down Syndrome Center since 2016 and in the field of occupational therapy since 2001. In the interest of time, I'm going to share her full bio in the chat, but we are thrilled to have her presenting today. Thank you for being here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Frank.
Thank you so much, Laura. So today, some of our objectives are to talk about the progression of assistance and what that might look like. I'm going to share some strategies and ways to modify or adapt activities as one ages. And I'm going to provide examples of activity modifications of things that, activities that occur throughout the day for you and your loved one. I'm going to share some equipment that may help improve independence and safety. And then obviously, as always, share resources that are available both in our resource library or just within the context of this presentation. But as a disclaimer, it is important to remember that this information is provided for educational purposes only and is not intended to serve as a substitute for any kind of medical advice or psychiatric advice. And we recommend that you bring any of those questions to your medical providers. And then I also want to let you know that I am going to talk about a variety of equipment and other resources, and neither Advocate Health nor myself actually endorse any of these products mentioned in this presentation. So with that, let's talk about how it's best to support individuals with Down syndrome. And so it's important to understand how individuals with Down syndrome learn. And so we do know that individuals with Down syndrome are visual learners, and they do well learning from someone that looks like them. So what can we do to support them? We want to pair pictures with spoken word. And I'm going to share a variety of visual resources with you, but it's important to think about it's not going to just be these visual supports that we create. It might be videos. It could be actual photos instead of the board maker pictures. But we know that it's going to be helpful for them to see people that look like them, see themselves doing something so that it can support their learning. We also know that they require simple directions. So we want to avoid using contractions, things like don't do that, right? Because it can be hard to understand the concept of don't, meaning do not. So we might say something like use safe hands instead of don't hit or don't touch. Or you can say, I like how you have a calm body if they're doing what they are supposed to be doing. So it's also important to say what to do instead of what not to do. We know that they're not as strong with auditory memory and auditory processing and have difficulty retaining directions or information that is only presented verbally. So we want to allow adequate response time. And it's going to seem a lot slower than what we think about. So a lot of times we might hear, I want you to do this at the count of 3, or if you're not doing this in the count of 3, you're going to get in trouble or whatever. And then you're always like 1, 2, 3. well, they're still processing if you don't do this. And so they're not even ready to deal with the 1, 2, 3. So it's important to, again, tell them what you want, allow them to process that, and then begin counting. And it might be like 1, 2, 3, or even slower than that to make sure that they are able to process what you are asking. But again, if we're using pictures with this, that can be helpful, or using a timer. And then individuals with Down syndrome have fewer short-term memory channels. So it's important for us to break down tasks into smaller steps. So we might want to say, all right, it's time to leave. You're like, get ready to leave. And there's still so many other things that are included when it comes to getting ready to leave the house, right? Maybe they need to use the restroom. Maybe they need to wash their face, brush their teeth, get dressed, eat breakfast. Even if they've already done all those things, in order to leave the house, they might need to get their shoes on, their coat on. They might need to get their purse or backpack or bag, or their bag of, items that they always leave the house with, whatever it is. And so if we just say it's time to leave, they don't necessarily know all these other little steps that we take for granted that we know we have to do when it's time to leave the house. So we're going to talk a lot about this progression of assistance. And this is just this continuum that all of us actually have with a variety of activities from independent to dependent. And as someone ages, we're going to move more from right to left on the continuum, which is really the opposite of what we did when we were younger and we were teaching them skills where they were actually going to move from dependent to independent. And it's important to understand that skill levels can fluctuate regularly for all of us, but especially as one ages. So maybe what they need today, they may not need tomorrow, but it can also fluctuate based on the time of the day, how well they were sleeping the night before. If they take different medication, that can impact how much help they need. So what does this look like? From right to left, we're going to need absolutely no assistance, to maybe just needing supervision, to prompts, minimal assistance, moderate assistance, maximal assistance, and then full assistance. So what does each of those things look like? So no assistance means they are able to complete the task 100% on their own, even if modifications or adaptations are put into place, right? We all have things that we put into place, like when we go to the grocery store, we probably have a grocery list, right? That's a modification we have for our memory, but we're still independent because we can get ourselves to the grocery store. We know the process of using the grocery store, but we use that compensatory strategy with our list so we don't forget anything. So that's okay. Our loved ones with Down syndrome can still be independent with some modifications or adaptations. But what might this look like? In the morning, they wake up on their own. They could use an alarm, but they set the alarm on their own, right? They can use the microwave to heat up a frozen meal. They shower on their own, including getting the temperature right on the water and washing all their body parts and hair and rinsing without needing assistance. They can go to the bathroom on their own. They wipe thoroughly, even if they use flushable wipes as their modification. And then when we provide supervision, they're able to complete the task on their own, but perhaps require supervision for safety. And again, they may also use modifications or adaptations in addition to the supervision. So maybe they use the oven on their own to make a pizza, but they need supervision when putting the pizza in and taking it out to make sure that they don't burn themselves. They can shower on their own, including setting up the temperature correctly and washing all their body parts and their hair, but maybe they need supervision to make sure they don't fall. So they need supervision getting in and out of the shower. Maybe you need to be nearby to make sure they don't fall when they're in the shower, or you might even have a shower chair in there so that they can sit, so that that's kind of the thing providing the supervision. Maybe they take the Pace bus or Uber or a taxi all on their own, and they can schedule it on their own, but you need to provide that supervision to make sure it's scheduled correctly, perhaps making sure it says AM instead of PM, or they select the correct day, something like that. Then there are a variety of prompts that we use regularly. And so the first one is modeling. And anyone can really model, but we want to make sure we're modeling the appropriate behavior. And again, the individual is going to be do best when they see themselves or someone that looks like them. So we have a variety of videos in our resource library that star people with Down syndrome doing different things, self-care task, appropriate touch, washing hands, stress management, eating healthy food. But when the person looks like them, they're like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too, or I want to do it. We can also video them doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they can watch that. So maybe we record them brushing their teeth so that they can watch themselves brush their teeth while they brush their teeth to make sure that they're doing all the steps and we don't have to be there with them. We can also gesture. So we can point at something or like give a thumbs up. We can provide verbal prompts. So these are going to be using the words for each step and even praising them when they're doing what they're supposed to do. The challenge with verbal prompts, though, is it really can lead to prompt dependency so that the individual won't even initiate a task without that verbal prompt. And so that's why verbal prompts can be very, very challenging and hard then to help with independence. And then there's visual prompts. So these are going to be words or pictures that tell someone what to do. And again, I'm going to show you a variety of visual supports throughout this webinar. So when we think about hand washing, what could all of these different prompts look like with hand washing? Perhaps modeling, we're going to wash our hands next to them, or they're going to watch a video of someone washing their hands while they do it. For gestures, maybe we just point to the faucet as that prompt to turn on the water. And then we point to the soap as that prompt to use the soap, things like that. If we're going to provide verbal prompts, we're going to say, turn on the water, put soap in hands, rub hands together, right? We're going to talk through each step. And then for the visual support, it's going to be a picture of each step. And we may end up using a verbal prompt with a visual or the verbal with the gesture, right? We might use a gesture, a verbal, and a visual. But again, if we want to work on independence, then we're going to try to phase out those prompts as best as possible. But knowing that as someone ages, they might be moving more towards the left side of the continuum, that we might need to increase the prompts that we provide. And so then after prompts, in order to move more left on the continuum, this is someone who's going to need minimal assistance to complete tasks. So maybe 25% of physical support, but they can do 75% of the task on their own. So this is where we might provide hand over hand or hand under hand assistance. So what that might look like is if we want them to be more thorough when they brush their teeth. If we provide hand over hand assistance, their hand is on the toothbrush, and then we put our hand on top of their hand, and we are guiding and supporting them so that they know where to brush, the pressure they need to brush, how to turn their wrist, right? Make sure they're getting the top and the bottom and the inside and the outside of their teeth. But then if we want to see how well they're doing, we want to do hand under hand assistance. So then our hand is the one holding the toothbrush and their hand is on top and they are guiding us to brush their teeth. So then you can see how well they're actually doing. And so that's a great progression. Again, you want to work from more assistance to less assistance. You want to do hand over hand, then hand under hand, right? But if they're progressing and aging and having trouble and losing skills, you might have to go from a hand under hand. They might need that hand over hand assistance. It might just be providing setup. So maybe it's just putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush and they can do the rest of the task on their own. And again, we may use modifications or adaptations. So instead of you having to put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, maybe you have an automatic toothpaste dispenser and then they can do it. Or you have the tool that you can put on your toothpaste that keeps pushing the toothpaste up into the top of the container to make it easier to squeeze. Or you have a totally different type of toothpaste container that is easier to squeeze, kind of like the stand-up one might be easier than the ones that are like longer. Then there's moderate assistance. So this is 50-50. They can do 50% of the task on their own. They need 50% assistance. They may use modifications or adaptations. And you as the caregiver may actually need equipment for safety, depending on what it might be, right? So maybe you set up their clothes, but they're able to get their shirt on without help. They are able to put it on correctly, so it's facing forward and not inside out, right? But maybe they need a little bit of assistance with their lower body dressing because they have trouble with their balance. And so you need to be there either to help them stand up or to help them balance while they pull up their clothes. Or with toileting, they tell you they have to use the restroom and they either may need assistance getting on or off the toilet or with their clothing management or perhaps with wiping during the task. Then there's maximal assistance. So they need 75% of the task done for them and 25% they can do on their own. And again, adaptive equipment or durable medical equipment may be used. So for dressing, they can put their arms through the shirt after you put it on over their head, right? Or they can put their feet into their pants, but then you need to provide the assistance to pull them up. And then with toileting, they tell you they need to use the restroom. Again, you're going to provide that assistance getting on and off the toilet. You're going to help with clothing management and wiping after a bowel movement. But if it's a female, maybe she can wipe after she urinates, and that's great. Or with eating, you might bring the food to their mouth, but they can still chew and swallow. And then finally, there's full assistance. So they need 100% physical support. They are doing very, very, very little on their own. So now we're going to talk about different strategies to modify or adapt activities that they might need to do during the day. Again, using that continuum of assistance. But additionally, we want to think about ways we can try to make things easier for loved ones to be as independent as possible. And so we want to talk about activity or task analysis, use of visual supports, and then how our sensory system can impact how independent we are during the day. So when I talk about activity analysis or task analysis, this is the bread and butter of what OTs do and why OT can be so important as a supporting provider for you as your loved one gets older, because this is breaking tasks down into individual steps. And so we have to think about how everything we need to do, how we break it down, thinking about how the person's fine motor skills are, maybe their motivation, the sequencing of the task. And this is just, again, comes naturally to OTs. And so we want to help support the individual with their self-care skills and breaking these steps down into the simpler steps. And maybe even we can have them do like the very beginning of the step, right? Like steps 1 and 2. And so that's going to be called forward chaining. So they do step 1 and 2, and then we do the rest of it for them. Or we can do backward chaining. And so we might do steps 1 through 6, and they do steps 7 and 8, depending on what the task is. And all of that's still going to keep them engaged and motivated, hopefully, to complete tasks, but we're not expecting them to complete steps 1 through 8 of everything they need to do. And so it's important to consider this as someone ages, because again, they may lose the ability to complete steps 1 through 8 by themselves, and we need to think about how to make it easiest and safest for them as well as us. And so when we think about getting dressed, there's so many things we need to think about. We need to gather the newer clean clothes, remove the older dirty clothes, put on our undergarments. We want to dress our lower body. What does that entail? It could be pants or shorts or a skirt, our shoes and socks. We need to do our upper body dressing, like our shirt. Do we need a jacket? Are we adding other things like a watch or jewelry, right? And so each one of those requires many other steps. So it's not just telling them get dressed and assuming they know how to do all of this. It's also they have to process, where are the new clothes? What should I wear today? What's the weather like outside? Right? Oh, It's cold now, it's going to be warmer later. Maybe I'll wear short sleeves, but bring a coat, right? That's hard for them to understand most of the time. Okay, now I've taken off my dirty clothes. Where do they go? They go in the hamper. Where is the hamper? Again, all these things, they extra steps they have to process that come so naturally to many of us. Then it's where, so I'm putting on my undergarments. Which direction do they go? What body part do they go on? What's the easiest way to put it on, especially a bra? Bras can be hard. Is it a sports bra? Is it a bra that fastens? Does it fasten in the front or the back? Do I have the fine motor skills to fasten it up by myself, or do I have to have some kind of modification so that I can be more independent? Dressing their lower body. I'm already standing up. Do I need to sit down? Can I do it by myself and standing while being safe? Where are my shoes and socks? All of these things, again, we take for granted. We have to understand that it's not just about getting dressed. And so we tell them to get dressed. We think, why aren't they doing it? Because there's a lot to think about. And so one thing that can really help process everything that we need them to do is using visual supports. And so these are words or other images that help us pair pictures with spoken words. It can help accommodate for that slower processing time. It's going to tell them what to do instead of what not to do. And it's also going to break tasks down into simpler steps. It can help them communicate, can help share or manage expectations. It can be used to provide reminders or offer choices and maintain skills and independence. So again, why they're important and they're not childish. I know a lot of our adults with Down syndrome are like, well, I use those in school. I'm not a child anymore. I don't want to use them. Visual supports grow and change with us as we age. We all use visual supports, whether it's our grocery list, whether it's looking at the apps on our phone, knowing which app we want to open. We're looking at the picture on the phone. We're not reading the words, right? But we know the little message icon is for texting, or the little phone symbol is for to place a call, right? We're not looking for it to say, we're like the little directory. We know that's our contacts, but we're not looking to read contacts. So that's really important for adults with Down syndrome to understand, is visuals are not childish, but maybe we don't use the board maker symbols. We can use pictures of them or actual icons instead of pictures. But so visual supports are going to help to provide or establish structure and routine. And we understand that individuals with Down syndrome function well when there's structure and routine. Especially as they age, structure really can help them manage their day better. Visual supports are going to provide memory and comprehension strategies, again, which are great for all of us, but as one ages, it's going to make it even easier if we're using visuals for memory and comprehension strategies. Visuals are supposed to lessen the battle between the parent and the caregiver and that person with Down syndrome. So that visual support becomes the bad guy, not the person asking for things to be done, right? So mom or sister, no longer nagging. It should lessen the power struggle. When I make the visual supports, I make sure that individual knows I'm the bad guy if they want me to be. I'm telling them to do this, not the person at home that's helping them carry it out. Again, it's going to help teach or show what to do. If they don't know what to do, or they're just told no or stop, the pictures are going to tell them what to do instead. Visuals can provide motivation. It can be a reward system. First you do this, then you get that. So first you do the less preferred activity, and then you get the preferred activity. Can provide opportunities to offer choices. So individuals with Down syndrome, especially when they're school age, are constantly being told what to do. They may not learn or understand that they have options. They can make choices about what they do. And so visuals can help with that. Whether it's like a choice board where they come home and there's certain activities they like to do, but they have downtime, you can say, instead of telling them like, why don't you do arts and crafts right now? It can be arts and crafts, watch TV. Maybe they like doing chores, like help with laundry or help cook dinner. And then when they come home, they can say, I want to do this right now. Right? And then it can help eliminate the need to process instructions auditorily, because again, we know that their auditory memory and auditory processing is just slower. So what can these visuals look like? So again, we can use them to help communicate. So whether it's a simple communication board, if they don't have a communication device about certain things that they may need to be able to report, especially if they're having trouble being understood. Maybe it's just talking about their emotions, how they feel. or things they might want, right? And we can communicate in a lot of different ways, but just knowing that there's visuals that can be used to support communication. Again, they can be used to share or manage expectations. So I talked about first, then. First, the less preferred activity, and then the preferred activity. So maybe they don't really love to shower, but you can say, first, we're going to shower, and then you get to listen to music, right? So instead of fighting over taking the shower, you're just telling them, once you shower, you can listen to your music, right? Maybe they don't like to shower, and even though they'll follow that first, then they're not going to shower every day, and it's a fight to get them to shower. So you're like, all right, you just have to shower 3 times this week. And these are on Velcro. And so they get to decide, they'll take the icon at the bottom and put it on the day of the week they want to shower. They just want to shower Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. All right, great. So on Sunday, that's what they decide. So come Monday, you're like, oh, look, it's a shower day. You picked it, right? So do you want to shower now or before bed? Right? And you can use that to help motivate or share these expectations when it comes to bathing. Or maybe it's just that reminder that when they are in the bathroom before bed, that they have to brush their teeth, floss, wash their face, and brush their hair. Again, they know they're supposed to do it, but maybe they're just getting stuck. Or they don't really want to do it, but this picture, once they see it, they're like, oh, I'm supposed to do that. So they do all of those steps. And again, this is taking away some of the prompts you have to provide. We've got this visual prompt to help them be more independent. Or again, these are the steps of everything that happens once you get home for the night, right? You're going to hang up your coat. You're going to go to the bathroom. Then it's time to eat dinner. After dinner, you'll get on your pajamas. You're going to have a snack. You're going to look at a book, right? You might say your prayers, get in bed, and fall asleep. Again, so they know what to expect when they get home. We can, again, provide reminders or offer choices. So as someone ages, perhaps they're going to need reminders about where they eat their meals or where their room is, right? So this is called an orientation book. You might just need timers. So we're going to do this, or you get 5 more minutes. And when, especially the one on the right, that's an app on a phone, and the one on the left is a time timer. That's a physical timer. But what's great is for both of them, the color disappears. And so as the color disappears, we know we're running out of time. But what's great about the duck is then you actually also see the picture appear when the color disappears, and then the duck quacks at the end. And so sometimes that can be more fun of a timer to use than the time timer or the timer on an oven or the timer on your phone. Sometimes just a stop sign is going to be helpful. They're constantly trying to grab snacks out of the pantry. Maybe that stop sign is going to be the reminder that they don't need a snack right now, that they only get to eat at meal times, or stop sign on the door because they constantly want to try to leave without telling you. This is something that's going to help you offer choices. Like I explained, they can have the choice board. These are 8 activities that they really like to do. They have downtime at home. They get to pick 3 of them. Or this weekend, again, weekends we have less structure. I mean, there's generally less structure at home anyway. But if we want to provide structure, this weekend, you need to do these 3 things, or these 3 chores, or whatever it might be, and having them make choices. And then again, just reminders. Maybe you want them to drink more water, and so they need the reminder that they have, not these. This is huge. You would not need to drink 6 of these a day, but a certain glass that there's preferred activity, or their preferred glass, then you know that they need to drink 6 of those that day. You have a visual reminder, and they can kind of check off. If it's a laminated piece, they can use a dry erase marker, and you can check off, oh, I already had that glass of water today. I only have 5 more left. Or maybe they're working on their social skills and they want to call certain family members or friends, and they're doing it too often. So you have a call schedule and you put pictures of the people and remind them, like, this is the day that you get to call that person, or you get to text with that person. And then again, this kind of whole talk is about helping maintain skills and independence. So we can use visual supports for that, whether it's the shower routine. And we have a resource in our resource library that helps you create the ones for yourself. So we have all of these activities plus other activities that people might need to do in the shower, and you can show them what their shower routine is. So it becomes that visual prompt. So you don't have to provide that verbal prompt, but you might have to, as they're learning, use gestures. All right, what are we doing? Oh, and you know it's turn on water, but you don't actually say turn on water, right? And then you point to each one until they get used to that routine. Same with using the toilet, reminding them if they need to wipe, if they need to wash their hands, they need to flush the toilet, whatever it might be. You might need all of these steps, or you might just need a few of them. Brushing teeth. We have resources in our resource library that have both electric and manual toothbrushes, and whether you leave the water on or turn the water off, whether you spit throughout or you spit at the beginning and spit at the end, whatever it might be, it's important to maybe have those steps. Same with washing your hands. And again, all of these can look different for each individual. So while we have them in our resource library, you might not need every step, or you might need a few different steps. And then you can just do a video of that person doing it, or pictures of you doing it and then posting those on. If you've been to our clinic, we have a reminder to wash your hands, but it's just the picture, wash hands, on our mirror. And that might be all they need. You might not need all of these steps. All right, so then the last thing that's going to help us think about supporting individuals with Down syndrome in their activities is our sensory system. And we have webinars about sensory, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it here, but you can refer to the sensory webinar in the resource library. But I want you to think about your sensory system being electrical wiring. And so here, the wires are all intact and the light remains on. Now I'm going to let you know the next slide does have a flashing light on it. And so if that is something that is triggering for you, or if you are prone to seizures, please look away for like the next 30 seconds, and I will not let it stay on very long, but I just wanted to let you all know. But if there's a kink in the wire, it might cause the lights to flicker. And so sometimes we can get this kink in our central nervous system, and the messages aren't being sent from the brain to where they need to go in the rest of the body. And that can be very challenging. I know it's stressful for me to see this flashing light, so I am going to change the slide. So if you were looking away, you may look again. And so when we have that kink, it's going to impact our behavior. And when our loved ones have this kink, and again, it's not a physical kink. We do not have like a sliver in our nervous system, in one of our nerves, but there's something kind of holding it where the message is going here, 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 right? But it's not going the rest of the way. So we could see verbal outbursts. We can see physical aggression. We might see slowing down or shutting down. And it's just because these senses don't feel right. And so as we age, our sensory system may also just start and experiencing these sensations differently, right? And then also, naturally, as we age, we're going to have changes in our hearing and in our vision and in our balance. And those are all different senses. And so we want to provide sensory input to help, because it can kind of help with that kink wire and help the messages go from the brain to where they need to go in the rest of the body. And because we understand that there is a chance of Alzheimer's disease as one with Down syndrome ages, I wanted to share this slide, which is also in our resource library, that we want to think about different strategies that might be calming for people who are overwhelmed, or alerting for people who are just kind of like there. They're present, but like you see, they're just not there. And we all have these times of day where we need calming or we need alerting. And so we want to think about maybe incorporating some of these sensory strategies before a task. So if they are already really on high alert and we need to calm them down in order to help them be successful in a self-care task, we might do some of these calming activities. Or maybe they're like practically asleep, but we need to get them in the shower. So we want to do an alerting activity so that their body is ready. And if you've heard me talk about sensory in the past, I always talk about a teeter-totter, right? We don't want our sensations, our sensory systems to teeter-totter high and low throughout the day. We want to try to keep them even. So some of these strategies, and again, some of these strategies are great for everyone, not just people that are aging or have Alzheimer's. But we want to do things to make that teeter-totter even, because once the teeter-totter's even, we're more open to the environment, the world around us, and we're going to be a more active participant. So now let's go through some of the specific tasks and look at what the progression of assistance might look like, and some strategies to help teach the skill or maintain the skill, or maybe even provide more assistance as one ages. So when it comes to feeding or eating, we might see as someone ages that they might have difficulty eating or swallowing foods or liquids safely. This could be because they haven't remembered that they've eaten, or the fact that so many individuals with Down syndrome have trouble knowing if they're feeling hungry or full or thirsty, right? And so they don't recognize those cues. They don't properly chew or swallow. We know that as they age, their cough reflex actually does weaken, and it may take them longer to eat. And so then they're at risk for weight loss. So what can we do? We can allow more time to eat. We don't want them to take too long to eat, right? Because that's going to interfere with the day. But we also don't want to be like, oh, well, there's only 10 minutes to eat right now. And then if they don't eat everything in those 10 minutes, we have to move on to the next activity. We might want to think about providing finger foods, especially if using utensils can be hard, or cutting food into smaller bite-sized pieces to make sure that even if they don't chew very much, they're not going to be at risk for choking, because they can still swallow it. Think about providing smaller portions of food frequently throughout the day. So they can't eat the whole meal anymore, but maybe you have a little bit of breakfast, and then a little bit later, they're going to have like some kind of snack that's kind of like a brunch, something that's like between breakfast and lunch. They'll have lunch, they'll have another snack, and then they have a small dinner, right? You want to just observe for changes in swallowing. So notice if they start coughing or gagging while they're eating. You're going to want to consider using adaptive equipment, which I'm going to talk about at the end. You might want to avoid extra noise when eating. So a lot of individuals with Down syndrome maybe love to watch their tablet while they're eating, but maybe you turn off the TV or their tablet. You limit the conversation because it's too overwhelming. There's too much going on that they can't just focus on eating. And then as they age, as vision changes, you also want to have a contrast between the plate and the table and the food on the plate. So you don't want like a tan placemat or a tan table with a tan plate with tan food like French fries and chicken nuggets and applesauce on it, because you're not going to be able to distinguish the food on the plate on the placemat. So we want to make sure that there's strong contrast. So what could this progression look like from supervision all the way down to dependence? So supervision, you're just going to watch them to make sure they don't eat too fast. Maybe for prompts, you're going to provide that verbal prompt to chew before they swallow. If they need minimal assistance, you're setting up the food, right? You're cutting the food, you're putting all the food on the plate for them, but then they're able to feed themselves. They can spear with a fork or scoop with a spoon. For moderate assistance, you're setting up the food and loading the utensil, but they're able to bring that loaded utensil to their mouth on their own. Maximal assistance, you're feeding them, but they can chew and swallow on their own. And if it's full assistance, it's a feeding tube. Now, these are examples. There could be a different type of supervision or minimal assistance for your loved one, but this is just an idea of what it could look like. When it comes to bathing, as one ages, it can be difficult to bathe. And maybe it's because with balance, they have difficulty stepping into or out of the tub or shower. They may develop a fear of the water, or we hear a lot of individuals with Down syndrome, not just as they age, don't like water on their face or don't like to tilt their head back when they're taking a shower. And so hair washing can be difficult. Maybe they're unable to follow the steps to wash without assistance. So what can we do? Perhaps we're going to use medical equipment like a shower chair or a transfer tub bench and grab bars. The difference between a shower chair and a transfer tub bench. A shower chair is just kind of the seat. It has the four legs, can sit in a tub shower typically, but also in a walk-in shower. But the transfer tub bench is specifically for a tub, and you've got the seat in the tub, and then it extends out, and there's two legs that sit outside the tub. And you can only use this with the shower curtain. With the shower door, it won't work. So then the person can sit on the transfer tub bench, swing their legs in, and then scoot over without having to stand up. So it's a great way to get in and out of the tub without having to stand. Grab bars are also great. Having a handheld shower head, this is great for people who are scared of the water. They can control where the water comes. As one ages and develops Alzheimer's, they don't get macular degeneration, but it's almost like their world gets really, really small and they can only kind of see what's in front of them. So when that water comes, it's scary because they're like, what is happening? So again, with that handheld shower head, they can see where the water's coming from. If they don't like water on their face, there's a bunch of visors. Many are for kids, but a lot of individuals with Down syndrome also have smaller heads. And so you can use a visor in the shower to keep the shampoo out of their eyes. Sponge bath is needed. You might want to use dry shampoo on a day where they don't really need to shower, but you can shower, or just you want to have their hair be a little cleaner. It's always important to tell the person what you're doing when you're assisting, and also asking permission before touching, especially with some intimate self-care things like bathing, right? It's important to have consent to model that behavior at home so they know that someone shouldn't be touching them without their permission. And you want to consider the time of day that the task is completed. They're a morning person. You probably want to bathe in the morning then instead of waiting at night because they're going to be too tired. They're a night person, so don't do it in the morning, do it at night, right? Or the best time of day for them is really around lunchtime. So then that's when you're going to do it, because you want to think about their endurance. If they get fatigued easily, what time of day are they more fatigued? Because bathing can be a very strenuous activity. It can take a lot out of them, especially if they have to stand in the shower. If they have a lot of those sensory things, it's going to be very overwhelming to do this task. So what could this progression look like? Supervision, you're just providing supervision for safety or thoroughness, making sure they're rinsing all the shampoo out of their hair. Prompts, verbal prompts for each step, or a gestural prompt for water temperature. Minimal assistance, you're going to turn on the water to the correct temperature. Maybe they wash their own body, but need assistance with washing their hair. Monitor assistance, you're going to turn on the water to the correct temperature. You're going to set up the soap for them, but the person can wash the body on their own, and assistance with washing hair, especially for those individuals that maybe if you pump bottles are great because you can say 2 pumps for that person that uses a ton of liquid soap or shampoo or conditioner. So a lot of those things can make bathing a little easier. Max assist, they can get into the bath or shower on their own. They probably use the shower chair or a bench and a handheld shower head, but they can't do the steps of the washing. And then full assistance, you might just be doing sponge baths. All right, so when it comes to dressing, we can have difficulty stepping into and out of pants or underwear because of balance. Maybe they're sensitive to textures, right? So they don't like certain clothing textures. They only like short sleeves. They don't like long sleeves. They want to always pull their pants up. They hate wearing socks, whatever it might be. Unable to follow the steps to get dressed without assistance, or just refusal to complete the task because of lack of understanding of why it needs to occur. I'm not leaving the house today. Why do I have to change out of my pajamas? So here are some strategies. Maybe you just always have the person sit when getting dressed, right? They used to stand to put their shoes and socks, their shoes on or their pants up, but you can still get them to do their pants and pull them up even without standing. It's great. I know. So as an OT, I know that it would be great if our loved ones had all the great fine motor skills to button buttons, zip zippers, tie shoes. But guess what? There's so many clothing options for everyone now that don't require us to need to do fasteners. So let's take advantage of them. It's going to help them be more independent. Perhaps you're going to start limiting wearing undergarments as they get older. If it's just too much of a hassle, or instead of having the girl wear a bra, she's just going to wear a cami. Maybe that's going to be enough without having to worry about the range of motion, the fine motor skills in order to put a bra on. Again, you want to tell the person what you're doing when you're assisting. You maybe just setting the clothes out for them if selection's an issue. You can use a visual support for the steps to get dressed, like this one on the right. So these are all the things they need to do to put on. You can also make this Velcro so that these are the pictures on here, but there's also Velcro so that there's a Velcro underwear on their dresser drawer where their underwear is. And they're like, oh, I have to get my underwear. And then they take the underwear picture off the dresser drawer, get the underwear out, and then label the underwear with the underwear, right? Same with the bra, their tank top, whatever it might be. And that's going to help them be independent. It may take longer, but it's going to help them learn how to be independent. And then helpful to maybe remove clothing that's not in season. So that way it's not even an option for them to wear. We have a lot of individuals who like to wear the same clothes every day. So to make it easier, having multiple versions of that same outfit or that same shirt so that they're still putting on a clean shirt every day, but it's the same one, just for hygiene reasons. Or having a day of the week. This is your favorite outfit, having that visual, you can wear it on Wednesdays or whatever day they choose. If it's not that day, they have to pick something else different to wear. So what could dressing progression look like? Supervision for safety or clothes selection. Again, making sure they're picking the right clothes for the weather. Verbal prompts to select the clothes. Maybe when they're getting dressed to provide minimal assistance because they just need help with their fasteners, but they do everything else. Moderate assistance, they can do either their upper body or their lower body, but not both. Maximal assistance, they're going to need assistance to dress both their upper body and lower body, and probably physical assistance to stand up. But once they're standing, they can pull up those lower body clothing with prompts. And full assistance, they might not be leaving the house. They might be wearing a nightgown or a hospital gown, if anything, just for ease of care. Because especially if you're doing sponge baths, if for toileting, they have a catheter or have to use a bedpan, right? You're going to want to make it as easy as possible for you and safe for them. We know that mobility can be challenging just because difficulty with walking, with balance, with vision, making all of this hard, so they could have difficulty navigating the environment, difficulty climbing up or going downstairs, stepping on or off curbs, walking through doorways, having trouble with like ramps. They have decreased strength that can impact their ability to walk or get up from sitting. Again, their hearing and vision may worsen, which can impact mobility and balance and safety, right? If they can't hear, they might not know if someone else is around them, if a car is coming, things like that. And there are some medications that may cause dizziness that can impact mobility. So we might need to provide handheld assistance, whether it's holding their hand, whether it's kind of like guiding them at the elbow or a slight hand on their back, especially if they're slow walkers. This can help get them moving a little bit faster without rushing them. We may need to use a gait belt, which is a belt that we put around their waist that we can help them transfer. So get from sitting to standing, getting on and off the toilet, in and out of the car, things like that. They may need walkers or wheelchairs, especially for longer distances, like they do great in the house, but for safety in the community, we might need to consider these. You want to make sure there's adequate lighting whenever you can. So make sure your stairwells are well lit, because those can be an area where there can be some shadows, and that can make going up and down steps challenging. Making sure hallways, if they have to go in the hallway in order to use the restroom, are well lit at night, things like that. You want to remove throw rugs and extra furniture because those are just other things that they can trip on. So if you don't need it, take it out of there, because we don't want them to fall. Make sure that they're always wearing supportive, well-fitting footwear. Making sure they have chairs with armrests. That's going to help them get up and down. If we're sitting on a chair without that, it's going to take a lot more strength in order to get up and down. And again, we talked about the additional lighting. So what can the mobility progression look like? Supervision, you're just watching them go up and down steps safely. You're there in case anything happens. You might need to provide a gestural prompt or a verbal prompt to remind them to use the handrail. For minimal assistance, they might need that handheld assistance when going up and down stairs, or the rails needed to get up from a chair. Maybe if they're using a walker, you set it up for them and they can use it on their own. So you're putting it in front of them, and then once it's there, they can use it. Moderate assistants can walk short distances with a walker or a rolling walker with a gait belt. So again, you're holding on to them on that gait belt for safety. And you may need to provide handheld assistance so that you're helping move the walker so that, because it requires so much strength. Maybe they're not using stairwells and they probably are going to be using a wheelchair for longer distances. Max assist, they can get up and down from a chair with armrest to transfer to that wheelchair. Even with the use of a gait belt, they're going to use that wheelchair to get around. You're going to be pushing the wheelchair. And then full assistance, non-ambulatory, assistance for all transfer using a wheelchair. So again, you're probably going to be using that gait belt to help with all of the transfers. And I apologize, I'm rushing through this. I'm just looking at the time, and I also want to make sure we have time for questions. And I still have a few more activities that I want to get through. So when it comes to toileting, we know that bowel and bladder functions deteriorate as one ages, but also it can be hard for them to develop these bowel and bladder functions. So they have that difficulty interpreting bathroom cues, that urge to go to the bathroom. The inability to locate the bathroom, maybe in time, or if they're out in the community, they just don't know where it is, and then they're going to have accidents. They have the inability to properly ask for help, so they don't have the communication skills to tell you they have to use the bathroom. They have difficulty sequencing the toileting routine, and then difficulty with toilet hygiene. So they have trouble wiping after a bowel movement. So maybe we provide verbal reminders to use the bathroom. We do a time schedule. So we know approximately every 2 hours, hey, why don't we use the bathroom? Or it's time to use the bathroom. Mark the bathroom door so the person can identify that that room is the bathroom. Again, we have those, even though our bathroom is labeled bathroom, we have pictures with the sign for toilet and a picture of the toilet on all of our doors here at the clinic so that it's easily identified that this is the bathroom. Again, that toileting schedule, whether you're providing the verbal reminders or not, maybe they wear a watch. Just like my Fitbit tells me at 10 till the hour that it's time to get my steps in if I haven't already, maybe they have some kind of little alarm, and that's that reminder that it's time to use the bathroom. You want to make sure to add contrast to the toilet in the bathroom. So again, it's the toilet seat on the toilet and the toilet against the wall or floor. Kind of like the same thing with the plate. If you have a white seat on a white toilet in a white bathroom, the likelihood that they're going to go to the bathroom somewhere other than in the toilet is very high. But if you have a pink seat on a white toilet with, I don't know, different color walls, blue walls, might not be the most glorious looking bathroom, but it's going to be safer and easier for them to use. You want to limit fluids before bedtime so that they don't have to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Maybe you use a 3-in-1 toilet or a urinal. These are also called, the 3-in-1s are called bedside commodes. So they're a frame of a toilet that can just sit over a toilet without the bucket in it and be a raised toilet seat. And it can have armrests that are stationary or that can be removable or lowered so that you can help with transfers. It can also then be used as a shower chair. So instead of the frame of the toilet, just move that whole frame into the shower. So those are two of the functions. And then the third function is that it becomes a bedside commode. So you put the bucket in and then you have the toilet, the commode near the bed so that they don't have to walk into the bathroom at night. And then if it's a man, perhaps they're going to use a urinal. Perhaps you're going to use chucks when they're lying in bed. So those are like the disposable, they're not diapers, they're just like like a disposable sheet. Not only do chucks help with moving the person in the bed. So if they get into bed and they're not high enough, you can use the chuck to help them get higher. But also, it's going to provide that layer so that if they do have an accident, it's going to go in the chuck. It's probably not going to go into the sheets or into the mattress. Maybe they use adult diapers at night, but they're good during the day. And using those flushable wipes when assisting with hygiene. But it's important to know that flushable wipes still shouldn't be flushed. A lot of pipes have a hard time with the wipes going through them. So just make sure if they're using a flushable wipe, they're still just throwing them away in the garbage can. So you might have to work on what that looks like, especially if they have a bowel movement. You might have a visual reminder just to flush the toilet because they never flush the toilet when they use the bathroom, or a reminder to wipe or a reminder to wash their hands. So what could this toileting progression look like? For supervision, when you're out in public, just make sure they go into the correct public restroom, or close the door for privacy, or maybe washing their hands, making sure they're not using too hot of water. You might provide a verbal prompt to use the toilet or wash their hands. For minimal assistance, they can complete the entire task, but assistance with hygiene after a bowel movement. Moderate assistance. All of that's the same, but in addition, they might be wearing an adult diaper in case of accidents when out in public. Maximal assistance, they're wearing adult diapers and they need them changed for them by them, or they need help changing them. They're not going to change them by themselves. And perhaps full assistance, they're using a catheter or also still wearing adult diapers. It just really depends. When it comes to hygiene, we have a variety of different hygiene tasks that we do during the day, whether it's brushing teeth, shaving, cutting our nails, brushing our hair. So perhaps the individual has increased sensitivities to textures and sounds, which can make these tasks challenging. They're unable to follow the steps to complete them, or maybe they just have a flat out refusal to complete these tasks. So what can we do? Especially with someone with Alzheimer's disease, we want to avoid completing hygiene tasks in front of a mirror. So with someone with Alzheimer's, they don't recognize that person in the mirror as themselves. It can be very scary. They think someone's like approaching them. So avoid a mirror. I've also seen this a little bit with individuals with Down syndrome regression disorder, that some of them don't like to look in the mirror either. So just be cognizant of that. For brushing teeth, using an electric toothbrush instead of a manual toothbrush, because then the electric toothbrush is kind of doing everything for you. You just have to make sure you put the toothbrush in your mouth, but some people don't like that vibration. So you can use a 3-sided toothbrush, which is pictured here. You also might want to consider using a pediatric or a child-sized toothbrush, because it's just going to be a smaller toothbrush head, which makes it easier to maneuver in someone's mouth than using an adult size. If you really want them to floss, or their dentist really wants them to floss, it can be very challenging just trying those floss picks. So they're just going up and down in between their teeth. For hair removal for women, if they really want to shave their legs, maybe having Nair or some other cream. For men, just using an electric razor instead of a straight razor can make shaving a little easier. We have videos on shaving with an electric razor in our resource library. Cutting nails can be really hard because of fine motor skills, because of vision, because of the fear of cutting themselves. So maybe using a rotating nail clipper like the scene in this picture, so that it's just easier. They don't have to rotate their wrist so much. Or in this bottom picture, this is an automatic nail clipper. And so you just kind of put your nail in that little slit and then it cuts it. We have one here that we've tried. It's great. It's not going to be good for individuals who have very thick nails or super long nails, and it's not good for toenails. I think just because individuals with Down syndrome tend to have toenail fungus, which makes their nails a lot thicker. You're not going to be able to use this, but this product, so Clip Different is a company that has an automatic nail clipper, and this is one of their newer products. It's called the Little Nipper. And so it's a little different than their original Clip Different. It's not inexpensive though, because just the nail clipper itself is $50. And then there's a pod so that the clipper can go in to make it so that they don't have to hold the clipper, that they can just kind of put their hand in. And so then the pod's an additional $35. So, but if you buy them together, it's $80. So it's less expensive than the original Clip Different, which is $150. And so being able to purchase them individually can make it more accessible, but you can also just go to the salon, right? I mean, a lot of individuals may not let you cut their nails, but if you went and had them go and get a mani-pedi, they love it. So that might be a great way to help them be independent, just letting someone else do it. Maybe you want to have them brush or comb their hair when it's wet, because it's just going to make it easier, especially if they get tangles once it dries. You really want to pick and choose your battles. So that's what those chore or the hygiene calendars can work really well for, so that you can pick and choose when it's going to happen, what time of the day it's going to happen, if it even needs to happen that day. And again, you want to consider the time of day because again, some of these hygiene tasks can take a lot of energy. So sleep can also become dysregulated, whether the individual's mixing their days and nights, napping throughout the day, refusing to go to sleep, slow to fall asleep, waking up in the middle of the night, and trouble falling back to sleep. So what are some things you can do? You want to have a dark room and close your curtains, perhaps having a sound machine so that they can have some kind of white noise to drown out the other noises, maybe in the house or outside of the house. Perhaps they sleep with a favorite object, whether it's a pillow, stuffed animal, blanket. Maybe they need bed rails so that they won't fall out of bed as they get older. If they're ones that want to get out of bed, but they're a fall risk, you might need a bed alarm so that you know that they get out of bed so that you can be there to help. Just like the chucks, you might want to just put, if it's toileting's not the issue, you might want to put a sheet. You can fold it up and put it horizontal in the bed again, so that you have extra sheets so that you can help them adjust in bed so that they're in a good place. They're not too far to the left, right, high or low in the bed. Maybe we're going to label the bedroom with a photo of them. When it comes to mixing day and night, you're going to want to have to give them something to wake up for so that they want to go to bed, some kind of activity that's motivating for them. You want to have a good bedtime routine. You can use a visual support for that. We have one in our resource library. All of those can help with sleep strategies. And then when it comes to leisure activities, especially as one ages, they have more time for leisure activities, but they are having a harder time doing some of them, right? Because they're just slowing down. So we want to focus on enjoyment and not necessarily achievement, right? So they may do their preferred task differently as they age, and that's okay. And we also want to kind of adjust activities to their life stage. So maybe as they age, we're going to do more repetitive tasks. We might want to just be prepared for them to be a more passive participant. So maybe they still listen to their music, but they're not dancing or they're not singing along, but they still seem to enjoy listening to it. We know that individuals with Alzheimer's may develop some agitation later in the day. It's called sundowners. And so we might want to have some more activities that can kind of like divert their attention and they kind of forget about that so that they don't get agitated, right? Or we want to make sure it's a quiet room. We can have them as leisure activities help with chores. That's a great opportunity for them to even get sensory input. Taking a walk outside, we're naturally getting vitamin D. We can talk about what we see. There's so many things we can do at on a walk. Looking at old photos is always a great activity to do when someone's not really sure what they want to do, or coloring. And even if they're not coloring in the lines anymore, but they still like to scribble, that's great. Or maybe they're painting instead. All of these are wonderful leisure opportunities. But again, as they age, we may need to provide more support or cues or supervision. Maybe allow them more time. We might also need to understand that they become fatigued. And so we might have to break one task up throughout the day because they need time to rest. We always want to make sure that the individual feels useful and helpful. We might need to relax our expectations for all of these tasks, not just leisure interests, right? Yes, they used to be able to do these things. Now they're not doing them as well. We shouldn't expect that, but we want to help them do everything they can at the stage that they're at. Try not to criticize or correct if they have Alzheimer's. We obviously don't ever want to try to criticize anyone, but we do want to try to correct them if we're helping them learn a skill. We always want to try to involve the person through conversation and tell them what we're doing, and always try again later. If something's not working right now, it's probably just not a good time. Try again, or think back, like what wasn't working. Let's adapt the activity to help them be successful. And so I mentioned I would talk about some home modifications and equipment recommendations. Here's an example of the contrasting colors in the bathroom. We talked about having adequate lighting in rooms and hallways. removing those unnecessary furniture, and throw rugs. And again, mirrors if someone has Alzheimer's or maybe even Down syndrome regression disorder. We might need to be adding handrails and ramps, perhaps reflective tape on stairs so that they can do well, because with the risers on the stairs, it can be challenging if there's not a contrast. You might need a walk-in shower versus the tub shower, and we have some resources in our resource library. Again, having those chairs with armrests, maybe using a deadbolt out of reach or an alarm on main doors for individuals that like to elope. Locking up medications and cleaning supplies to make sure they don't get into them, removing locks on interior doors to make sure the person's not going to lock themselves in and you're not going to be able to get them out. Closing the curtains at night can be help, again, because of the reflection. And this is especially for individuals with Alzheimer's, but could also be for individuals that are sensitive to sounds. You want to turn down the volume on the TV before changing channels, because different channels, depending on what you're flipping to, and the way that the production on the TV is and the programming, the sound could be very loud and could be very startling. These are some of the adaptive equipment feeding things that you can use, whether it's weighted utensils. If they have tremors, you might want to have something that's more weighted so that they're going to be able to feed themselves. You can also use, when we feed ourselves, we do a lot of wrist rotation. There's also utensils that the handle is straight, but then the head of the spoon or the fork spears curved towards that person, depending on if they're right-handed or left-handed. So that can take out the wrist rotation and help them feed. We might need to think about adaptive plates. So the gray one can help with food portions, but can also give them so that they're able to spear or scoop their food more easily without getting it off the plate. Same with the blue one. That one you just slide all the way over to the side. So they're just different. Again, making sure you have contrasting colors. You might need cups with lids to make sure that they aren't spilling. Long-handled sponges are great for the shower to help them reach all the areas that they can't reach on their own. And I had mentioned automatic soap or just toothpaste dispensers to help increase that independence. We talked about shower chairs and handheld shower heads. So this is just the picture on the top, shows grab bars around the toilet, the handheld shower head, a shower chair. There's even a shower chair on wheels. The toilet on the right, this gray and white one, that's what a 3-in-1 commode looks like. Then we've got the patient transfer sheet is that blue sheet. So again, you can also just use a regular sheet. You might need a hospital bed. We talked about walkers, rolling walkers, gait belts and wheelchairs. And then when it comes to communication, it's really important, just because of how they learn, you want to provide simple instructions. With many of our loved ones with Down syndrome, don't argue with them. You're not going to win. If they're going to believe what they want, and they might just walk away from you if they don't like what you're saying. So it's just not worth arguing about. If they have dementia, don't be like, don't you remember this? Always smile as best as you can, especially with someone with dementia. Try not to raise your voice. You want to speak calmly and use a slow pace as much as possible. You want to kind of look at them at eye level. Make sure you're looking at them eye to eye. That's going to help with so many things, especially with them understanding what you're saying. You don't want to ask too many questions or make too many statements all at once. Again, using pictures can really help. So it's important to remember that as an individual ages, a change in functional status does occur. And so more assistance may be needed to help an individual with Down syndrome as there is a decline in skills. It is important to ensure safety of the individual as well as the caregiver when providing care. And you want to keep the environment calm, predictable, obvious, familiar, and safe. So I mentioned there would be some resources. I know Laura had this slide also at the beginning, but almost everything that I shared today is in our resource library. So we encourage you to check that out. There are some additional resources for adults as they age. So whether it's the NDSS caregiver guide, Down Syndrome Scotland has a Living with Dementia resource. The Canadian Down Syndrome Society has a whole resource package on aging. And NDSS also has an aging guide. So all of the things to consider as an individual with Down syndrome ages. So with that being said, I'm going to give you my contact information quickly. You are always welcome to email me with questions, especially if we don't get to them today. But I know that there's probably a few questions and we have a little bit of time. So I apologize, Laura, for running over.
Oh, this was wonderful. Thank you so much, Katie. We do have questions, and so I'm just going to dive right in. At what age might you start seeing some changes that would indicate you need to modify activities?
Well, I think it really depends because we might see changes in adolescence, or like the teenage years, and it may not necessarily be Down syndrome regression disorder, but because of puberty and other things, we might see changes then where they had these skills and we see a decline. But when it comes to Alzheimer's, I would say frequently it starts in the 40s, where we might see them slowly having trouble doing things that they once were able to do. But it really can vary. We're all individuals, right? And so there could be different reasons for different people having a decline. Perhaps they had an injury where they fell and then, or they needed surgery on like their knee or their hip. And then even if they're in their 20s, but then it's going to be hard for them to get back because they got into a groove of being providing, someone was providing assistance or they were hospitalized for a long time. And so then it doesn't really matter the age because they're like, people were taking care of me the whole time I was in the hospital. Why should I do it now? So that's a tricky question. And I would say it varies, but there are certain times or events in someone's life where we might see a decline in skills.
Thank you. How do you know when to stop expecting an individual to do a skill that they once did or to continue pushing them to be independent?
That is a wonderful question. And I think, again, it's going to be very individualized and it's going to be why aren't they doing that skill? So again, was it a medical reason? Is it age? Is it because of some new diagnosis? And so I think that's where it's really important to talk with a healthcare professional, see if you can get an OT referral because that OT should be able to help you. Now, I know this is also a tricky thing because not everyone who's listening right now has an OT like me in their community who sees adults with Down syndrome or even with intellectual disability. Because if you were to just get an OT referral and your loved one is not in peds anymore, they're going to go and be referred to an outpatient OT setting. And those OTs are not necessarily going to care that your loved one has an intellectual disability. They might say, oh, well, this is baseline. Or they might say, I can help them. But then if the individual's not cooperative or participating, they may discharge them by saying they weren't compliant with their exercises or with, or during the treatment session because they don't know how to modify activities. So that is actually a resource we are working on. It's not posted yet in our resource library, but we want to create a resource so that we know we do have one for mental health therapists, but not for like physical therapists, occupational therapists, or speech and language pathologists who aren't familiar working with adults with Down syndrome and ways that they can modify activities, motivate individuals to participate in a therapy session. And so I think that's also a tricky thing. But ultimately, you would want to work with an OT to see if there are strategies that can be incorporated to help them be more independent. And then they can also help you decide, you know what, I think this is a learning thing and they're not there, or I think this is a motivation thing and that we can fix, right? And so they can kind of figure out maybe the reason why this is happening and try to provide strategies to work through it.
Our last question. But we, as Katie said, have lots of resources in our resource library that you can refer to. We received a few questions about individuals who have stopped doing some things that they once liked to do. So like someone who really loved sports and isn't doing as many of them anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
I'm sorry, yes. So we received a few questions about individuals who've stopped doing activities that they used to really enjoy. So like one person loved doing Special Olympic sports, but hasn't been as interested anymore. Do you know, why that might be, or do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, and I think it could change, but we also have to remember that our interests change as we get older also. And I mean, perhaps it's like a 25 or 28-year-old who was so active in Special Olympics, but now they don't really want to go. So, are their friends still going? Uh, we know that individuals with Down syndrome, their body kind of ages like 15 years beyond their chronological age. So if they're 28, their body's like a 43-year-old. And at 43, maybe these sports just hurt more and they don't like that, or they don't have the endurance to do the activities. So it could be lots of things. I mean, you could ask. Something may have happened there. Like we had one participant who didn't want to go anymore because he thought the coach was mean. The coach wasn't being mean, but um, I mean, sometimes it just helps to ask and see, but it could be for a variety of reasons why they might not like to do something. And we should respect the fact that they don't want to do it, because we don't like to do things that we don't want to do, but provide other activities that they can engage in, or maybe they don't like doing the sport anymore, but they still want to go watch the sport, and so they can still be involved that way.
Katie? And thank you all for joining us. I'm sorry that we ran out of time on some of those questions, but there is a feedback survey that will pop up in your browser and that we'll also send to you in a follow-up email. So we would welcome your thoughts and ideas for future webinars. And we are able to offer these webinars free of charge through the generosity of our donors. So if you are interested in supporting our mission, please see that link when we send out the slides or use that QR code. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you again to Katie for your wonderful presentation.
My pleasure. Thank you.